Welcome back to another edition of In the Booth, and it's your boy Flobo Boys. And everyone kind of always asks me, okay, I like the show, man, but why is it called In the Booth? And I always say, I like to imagine having my guest in the press box talking about the sport, but my guest has actually been in press boxes. I'm talking about the New York sports legend. I'm talking about SNY TV, New York Post, WFAN, The Fan, legendary sports journalist, legend himself, Dexter Henry. How's it going, good sir? Thanks for being on the show.
Flobo, man, thank you for having me. I think you might be the first person to introduce me and call me a legend.
Twice.
But you know what? I'm not even gonna. I'm gonna just embrace it, man. I'm gonna embrace it. Thank you.
I think the first time I saw you, I didn't even realize I saw you. It was like, I had to be like 10 or 15 years ago on like News 12 one time. And then like recently I saw it, I was like, you look for like almost 3 months. I was trying to figure it out. I was like, oh, I remember you've been putting the work in for a long time in the sports game, man. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, man, I have. I think sometimes I don't realize it's been that long. My journey has been an interesting one. I'm somebody who, went to school at the University of Pittsburgh. I studied media communications there. I came out, graduated in 2005, moved back to Brooklyn, New York, my hometown where I'm from. My parents immigrated from the Caribbean. And, I started my career in print journalism. My first job, I always like to tell people this, my first job, I was working for 9 months, small paper called the Brooklyn View here in Brooklyn, New York. And
wow.
Yeah, small paper. You probably knew it because I know you were from the Flatlands area, so you know that paper.
Yeah, there's like a whole lot of them. The Courier Life publications.
Courier Life. All that. Yeah, you know about that. Flobo knows about that. And so I was writing for them, and 9 months later, I had first job in my career. I got fired from the job. And I haven't told this publicly too much, but the reason I got fired from that job was there was an editor there who did not look like me or Flobo, and he was a little jealous of some of the success I was having and made up some reasons to fire me. Only job I've ever been fired from, so it was a not fair firing, but I was a little down after that and was thinking about what I wanted to do in my career. And I got some great advice from people like Stephen A. Smith, who I'd met, who was really helpful to me at that time, some of my other mentors. And I always knew I wanted to do stuff on the broadcast side. And so I was just always looking for opportunities to do that, and just started doing some stuff on my own and looking for different opportunities there. But then I worked for Major League Baseball, MLB.com, as a game night editor. I was editing video there, a lot of long hours there, but I always tell people that's one of the most important jobs I had. And then after that, I worked for the New York Post, my first time working with them as a video journalist from 2007, 2009. And that was great because I kind of got reps on camera. Yeah. And from there, I worked with another company doing some on-camera work for them, and some work shooting with other reporters on that for a while. Worked for the New York Giants. The biggest thing I did, and this is the biggest, maybe most important thing in the story, Flobo, is I actually decided to start my own media outlet called Backpack Broadcasting, because I wasn't getting certain opportunities that I thought in certain places I was working. And so I decided to invest in some gear, a laptop, camera, start covering high school basketball. And that really was huge for me, because that opened up doors for me in News 12, where you saw me before News 12. A shout out to my former boss there, Pat O'Keefe, who was really helpful to me there. And then Nets Daily, doing some stuff with the Brooklyn Nets. And then my journey after that took me to AccuWeather, where I actually was a national weather reporter for 3 years. I was the first Black male national weather reporter there.
Oh, damn.
And so, yeah, that was very interesting. Covering that was something different. Also, I should have mentioned, while I was at News 12, I didn't just do sports. I also did news as well, too. So that was huge. And now I'm back with the New York Post and SNY with the digital partnership as a sports anchor for them. And I also do updates for WFAN and CBS Sports Radio. I do dabble in some play-by-play for a variety of sports: baseball, basketball, softball, lacrosse. I've been doing that for some different colleges in the area. So that's sort of my journey, man. But I've always loved storytelling. I've always loved journalism and sports from a young age. And I'm just always trying to push it forward. And one of the things I'm passionate about in storytelling is telling stories around, communities of color, particularly Black communities, communities that don't have the same opportunities as others.
Absolutely.
There's so many great stories to tell around that in sports. So I love doing that.
I felt like I was a fan off the Greatest Hits CD. And like, nah, man, I've been in the game 30 years. Here's the box set. and I like that, because there's a lot of things I want to unpack just because of the DIY aspect of it, and the fact that you and I are both part of the West Indian community in New York. And so I felt like it's very unique about our experience. I mean, there's a whole thing about like the communities up and down the Eastern Seaboard, the lowering prices of flights. So like Halifax, Toronto, Boston has their own thing. But like, what was it made it different? Being in New York, being from the islands, especially with the community that may not be familiar with all the islands in the region. Like, how'd you were able to carve out your own identity as you were coming up in the game?
Yeah. So, I love that you talk about that because I think growing up in Brooklyn, New York, my parents we're both from Grenada, Island of Grenada. I'm a proud Grenadian.
Yes, so
Spice
Spice
Island.
Island. Yes,
Yep,
yes.
Spice Island. Very proud. I feel blessed of where I grew up because I grew up in East Flatbush, and that's a very strong, as you know, you grew up in Flatlands and
Mhm.
Canarsie and Flatbush, very strong Caribbean footprints in those communities. So I was always around my culture. It didn't matter. And people from different islands, all my friends, a lot of my friends are fellow Caribbeans, whether from Trinidad or Barbados, Jamaica, Haiti. Like I have so many friends from all these different islands, but we all grew up together. So, parts of Flatbush is known as, little whatever, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
there's little Caribbean, and little part of that has been named that around Prospect Lefferts Gardens. And so I think personally, for me, there's a lot of pride in being a first generation immigrant, particularly my parents, where they come from in Grenada and what they were able to do in this country. There's a lot of pride for me in that, and I think that pride and work ethic always helped me. It's something that was instilled in me culturally to work hard, to have to create your own opportunities if you have to. I think a lot of us from the Caribbean and our background, we come from not having much. We come from having to fight for our own independence. We come from having to fight against colonialism and imperialism in our nations that are still, some of them that are recovering from that. So I think those things have instilled values in me and pride that has always pushed me forward in my
yeah,
career. And then I've watched so many other people I grew up with do things in different spaces that are Caribbean American, that are doing amazing things, and that pushes you forward. What I will say to that is, and I'm meeting more people like this. I think early on in my career, I didn't meet a lot of other West Indian Americans in sports journalism. It's like even Flobo, even you and I connecting, it's still
yeah.
sometimes few and far between. But when I see us, I'm so proud. I'm always proud when I see anybody Black, but it even means more when I see somebody else so I know who's West Indian or West Indian American.
Sure.
It means more to me because that we have a shared and common cultural experience, no matter what island we're from.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
I think there's core values to my Grenadianness, my Caribbeanness that is instilled in me that pushes me to be a great journalist. And no matter what I do, I think about representing. Even though I was born here, I consider Grenada. Grenada is my country, and I consider representing my country and my family. My parents are no longer with me, but I still feel like I put on for them so much and make them proud and all the ancestors before me. So
Yeah.
yeah, man, that definitely shaped me in my career. My Caribbeanness, if you want to say that, that has definitely had an impact on my career.
I like the fact you mentioned the neighborhoods because I felt like the city hall of Caribbean Brooklyn was that Taste of Tropics and Utica and D, right? Everyone's
Hey,
rolled
man.
rolled up
Yes.
with that
Yes.
sour sop ice cream. It's funny because you mentioned that my parents are both from Barbados and they came in the 70s. And I had a slightly different experience growing up. I think I went to because my brother was older, he got to a different schools and they had moved. And I went to
Mhm.
more classes and environments where it was a more mixed situation. And there really was a grand confusion of what island over other. And someone would try to do the Jamaican accent at you. And I always say in the years 1999 BR before Rihanna, no one really knew where on the map you were from. And so that was always something I had to struggle with. And as I gotten older, I'm actually more prideful with what my parents did. My grandparents chopped sugarcane, like literally in
Mm,
the fields with a machete to make it happen.
mm.
And there were butchers and fishermen. The fact I'm doing this, I call it microphone culture, is amazing. When I said to my mom, "Look, I'm going to try entertainment," she didn't understand, but she was all about it. Was it? Did you have a similar situation when you decided to go into sports
Yo,
journalism?
oh man, I'm so glad to talk to you about this. I
Yeah,
don't, I don't think I've had a lot of podcasts where people have asked me about my career, but this goes for the listeners and the viewers. This is where a shared cultural experience may matter sometimes. And
yeah.
what Flobo just asked, yeah, I had a similar situation, but it's funny. The situation I'm gonna speak on, I had a positive side, so I don't want to say a negative side of it, but just two different views from my parents. And I spoke about this at my dad's funeral last year. And when I was in college at the University of Pittsburgh, and I was at first an athletic training major, Flobo.
Okay.
And then I decided to switch my major to sports journalism. I was like, this is what I want to do. My mom was not like, she was not with it. Like I had went to, I'm a graduate of Clara Barton High School in Brooklyn,
Oh,
which is a high school
wow.
for health professions, right?
Yeah.
As you know, so I was thinking about being sort of on that medical track. And as you know, Flobo, in a lot of Caribbean households, medicine, law, that is very looked upon as very high professions that you should aspire to. That
My
parents
mom's a
want
nurse. I got it.
yeah, your mom's a nurse, and
Mhm.
and this is much respect to her. And as you know, a lot of Caribbean women in Brooklyn, where we grew up, in the Flatbush, Flatlands area, a lot of women work as nurses. I have aunts who work as nurses in the hospitals here in Brooklyn. So, very strong respect for that. And, it was looked upon doing that. And I think my mom deep down wanted to see me go in that medical track, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And here I am saying, no, this is not what I want to do. My dad was the opposite. He saw something in me through things I'd done younger with public speaking and storytelling. And he kind of was like, no, I see this for you. And he was like, he's like, look, you're switching your major, you're a man now, you're gonna figure this out. You got to make this work. And that gave me all the confidence I needed to do what I had to do. So whenever I tell that story, to tell people that, my dad meant so much to me in telling me that. But yes, I did have that Caribbean experience of like, what are you doing here? How are you going to make money? You're going to be able to do this? You're going to be able to do it? That's always a concern. Now, I think that's also a concern for a lot of Black people, particularly in a lot of fields. But my mom she was on board eventually. And I know she's very proud to see what I've done. And I know my dad is very proud of what I've done. But I do think there was that experience of like, hey, what are you doing? Because it was not traditional. Then that's kind of what I hear you saying. I don't want to put words in your mouth, Flobo, but then
I'm with you.
Your mom kind of was like, oh, this isn't traditional. Like, how's this going to work out for you? But something you said, you talked about where your grandparents, what they did in cutting sugarcane and butchers and fishermen. And, my parents come from, poverty in Grenada. And a lot of people work the fields as well, too. We are, like that statement that we're our ancestors' wildest dreams. And we are, that we are two Black men working in sports media space and creating content and, being able to touch people, inspire the next generation of West Indian Americans. Like that's huge, man. They would have loved to have seen this for us. That's what I know sometimes, I guess what I'm saying is I know culturally sometimes I understood why it was scary for us to take risks, do something different. I understand it. I was frustrated about that when I was younger, but I understand it a little more now that I'm older. But that's what we're supposed to do. Supposed to push things forward. And so salute to you for pushing things forward, man.
Salute to you too, brother. That was a rousing speech, man. You got me all tearing up and stuff. But talking about this shared experience, and especially my relationship with my parents, I got a chance to really hit another level with my dad when he retired from the MTA. Did 34 years with the trains division, the rapid division, was baseball. He kept it on to learn the sport, his form of American cricket, I used to call it. I picked the Mets super early because there were more people back then that looked like me. The issue is now there's almost nobody on the Mets who are Black, but at the time, there were people that looked like me. My dad became a Mets fan afterward when Roger Clemens threw the bat shunt at Piazza. What was your experience with baseball in New York? I mean, I know that you are also a Mets fan, but how'd you go about that?
So my Mets fandom really comes a lot. It's funny. It's tied to my grandmother. My late grandmother, rest in peace to her too. She, both my parents and my grandmother had actually lived in England for a bit before coming to the States in the late 70s. And my grandmother just, coming here, I think she tried to get into baseball, kind of like your dad was trying to understand it. It was American cricket. I'll be honest, I am not the biggest cricket fan. Soccer,
I tried,
yes.
Man.
Soccer, yes. Cricket, no.
Yeah.
But my grandmother had the Mets on all the time, and she loved Doc and Darryl. And she bought me, when I was in kindergarten, she got me these two folders that were, one was like a Doc folder, another one was a Darryl folder, and Darryl was my guy. And so that was it. I think that was just it's funny how you said that even when you're young, you realize like, oh man, there's people in this sport that these guys look like me. And that mattered. I don't think I could verbalize that as much at 5 years old, but I kind of understood that.
Mm-hmm.
And I just liked those guys and became a fan. And I was hooked. And, my dad, My dad is probably smiling down, thinking about hearing me say this now, but my dad he started off as a Mets fan, and then he
Okay.
flipped over to the Yankees. I gave him hell for that for a
Yeah.
long time. So my dad would take me to games. My dad, he used to get some tickets from work where he worked at Chase Manhattan Bank, and he would take me to games at Shea. And so, I always can remember my first game in '91 against the Giants. And I was just a Mets fan. Listen, you and I are closer in age, Flobo, and when we came up, the Mets were like, they were going on this downturn of being really bad.
Oh
So
yeah.
there was not a lot of pride in being a Mets fan. You know what I mean? But like, I love the Mets. I love their colors. I love that Doc and Darryl was on the team. Sometimes I wish now there was more players on the team that look like us,
Sure.
that you could really root for. But yeah, that was my introduction to becoming a Mets fan. I've been a Mets fan ever since. Highs, lows of 2006. I was there for the last game of each year in 2007 and 2008, working for the Post.
Wait, the actual last game or the middle of August where the season was pretty much done?
No. The actual last game of those collapses.
Yeah.
I was the last game of the season, both at Shea those years, the last games. I was there.
Oh man.
Yeah, so it was rough. But yeah, the Mets being a Mets fan has been fun and interesting, and I like where they kind of are now with their management. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. But that's my introduction to being a Mets fan.
Yeah, definitely a cautious optimism heading to 2024 season. And they're going to London to face the Phillies in the London series. And that reminds me of a video you posted recently about the Soul series, which happened a couple days ago in the middle/end of spring training. You had some thoughts about that. You're like, well, I understand why we're doing this, but the timing and what it is for, like, this is another overview. The international series, you're a fan, not a fan, or is it a timing situation? What's your take on that?
I don't mind it because I like where the Mets are doing it, where it's going to be sort of in the season. I didn't like the Mets are doing it in the season, right?
Yeah, it's the first week of June.
Yeah, okay. I thought this first week of June. I thought so. Just making sure, double checked on that. The Soul series, and I this is a tight video, so I'm glad to talk about this with you in a even with more nuance. Every league is trying to promote their sport to be a global sport. Here's the thing, I feel. I'm not sure every sport it has the chance to truly be a global sport. Like, I actually don't believe that, right? Like I think people want things to,
right,
but I don't think it necessarily has the chance to. I think soccer, which we look at as a global sport, has just always been that because so many people around the world play it. If you look at the two sports that are the most global sports, I think they're the most global sports for a very simple reason. And the reason is that everybody can play it. Soccer, all you need is the ball, and you can make up nets. You can use trash cans. Look at Messi playing in Argentina. You can make this work. Same thing with basketball. Those are the two most global sports you can play because it's more accessible to everybody and everybody can watch it. It's for almost everybody.
Okay.
Baseball, costs a little bit more with equipment to play, right? NFL is the same thing and very unique in that. I understand that people want to grow their games, and the Soul games are a little different from what I'm going to say because you're going into a market that's already baseball crazy. They've already shown that they love baseball. And I understood why MLB wants to market their Asian stars in Asia. Makes a whole lot of sense there, right? You got Ohtani out there. You get Yu Darvish out there. This is dope. What I didn't like is I wish they had done it during the season. I didn't like the fact that it was towards the end of spring training. Then the teams are coming back and they're part of spring training. Yeah. And I felt, or just have a true opening day out there. Like, just do it out there for opening day. Have this on open day. So some early baseball. The timing was a little bothersome to me, but have it. I'm more concerned with the MLB with what they're doing with Ohtani because Ohtani is the biggest star. He is the most exciting thing to happen into the sport for quite some time. And I think you have to market him as much as you can. I think baseball has done a poor job, in my opinion, marketing their stars, particularly in the last 15 to 20 years. I think they could do a lot better. When you think of some of the campaigns we watched growing up, Flobo, I'm wearing a shirt here with Ken Griffey.
Swingman.
Griffey had some amazing campaigns. You could think about so many other players. I think baseball has some exciting players in the sport right now. I just think they need to market them a little bit better. And yes, the Seoul series, I think it's the timing for me more of it. I love what they're doing the London series.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
not sure how much that's going to catch on in England. When I talk to my family in England, they don't really care about baseball at
Right.
all whatsoever.
Yeah.
They have gotten more into the NBA, and I have an uncle who's actually really into the NFL. It stunned me, really into the NFL. So I I don't know how it's going to catch on. I guess they've got to try. I just don't think certain sports are going to catch on globally because of I think socioeconomics is a factor in that too that we sometimes ignore.
Yeah, I think football has an advantage, or American football has an
Mm.
advantage because for the British audience, because the games start like at 10 a.m. on a Sunday, which is like perfect time after church or lunch if you're out there in England. But you hit a good point in the head because at the beginning of the month, as I record this is the end of March, I went to Las Vegas to watch NRL, which is an Australian rugby league, having their first ever Las Vegas thing. I'm a fan of Australian rugby during the pandemic because it was one of the few sports that never stopped. They stopped for like a week. And I realized the people that went were just other Australians. It wasn't like people that said, "Oh, check us out." Everyone
Mm.
in the stadium were Australian. So I wonder about the timing of that as well. And here's a theory I have about the marketing of players. Maybe you can agree or disagree, maybe it's open-ended. But I really felt growing up in the early to mid 90s that after the strike and the steroid scandal, I think baseball just said, forget individuals. We're going back to the brand. And it was a concerted effort to not put people on pedestals and highlight them. Maybe it's my tinfoil hat thing, but I felt like after those two things happened, you never got the Bo knows nothing no mo. You got, oh, this Mike Trout, he's pretty good. Anyway, back to you in sports. It felt like it was kind of different. Am I crazy?
No, it's funny. I hadn't thought about it like that, but I don't think it's crazy because it makes a ton of sense in terms of what leagues are going to do. Like, this is a really good conversation because it's like, particularly in America, the goal of these leagues, right, is to try. I was about to say something, and then I was like, I'm not so sure. Leagues don't want to have anything to do with scandal. So the points you're making are really good. Baseball had a black eye from the 94 strike, right? There's an undoubtedly, I know we were young, there was undoubtedly a black eye about that. Then you talk about the steroid era. After all the hype they had coming back from the strike, and you had the McGuire and Sosa race, and then Barry Bonds, there was all these eyes on it. And then it was like, but there was a black eye from that because we knew players were out here juicing.
Right.
I think you're right. I think it's logical. I think it's very logical for you to sit there and say, yo, the league said, we got to scale back this individualism in terms of promotion. I don't think that's illogical at all. I think it actually makes a lot of sense. And leagues want to protect themselves, I think, from any more black eyes or what the perception people may have of the league in that. Now, in doing that, I can understand why they did it. But I think at the same time, it hurt the sport a little bit. I think what they banked on in that was that we're America's pastime. And
At one point.
what's happened in that time, because I think you're bringing up a really good point, but you also have to look, not you specifically, but we also have to look at what has happened in that time, and that's been the football's rose and past it, and now is the number one sport in America for a variety of reasons we can get into. Baseball, I think, where it's at, cannot, and football's had some PR nightmares over the last couple of years that you think would have hurt them, but it has not hurt them, which
Right.
says a lot about how people feel about violence and love that with the sport and all that other stuff. But I think that baseball needs to get back into that, and particularly with Ohtani. They need to get back into that. They missed it with Trout. You mentioned Trout. There's a lot of people who, like, if they pass Mike Trout in the street, they have no idea who he was.
In Anaheim, they
Right?
won't. They won't.
Yeah, right. Like, it's like he was, for a good time, I'll probably say Ohtani's passing, was the best player in the sport, and people have no idea what he looked like, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you've got some good, young, exciting players now. I think Ohtani, Judge, Mookie Betts, who I think are like the three, best position players in the game, if you want to say, you gotta market these guys. But I hadn't thought about what you said, but I love it because it makes a lot of sense of why you've seen the shift in that. Because it's not like there's been a lack of good players. It's not
Right.
that.
Well,
right?
look at
It's not.
Ohtani, right? I mean, he
Yeah,
possibly is being investigated. Well, the situation is being investigated, not Ohtani specifically, about the whole
right.
betting thing. I think it's going to come out and we're going to have a result. I'm not going to say what MLB is going to do, but I think that's problem. If it was a situation where Ohtani was found liable or culpable or whatever, this could be huge for baseball because that was the first person in a long time that got the push as being the guy of the league.
Oh, if so, I'm not. We're not speculating. I know we're both
Yeah,
not speculating here, but
yeah, sure.
if something happened that was damaging to Ohtani, particularly with, let's just say it, with gambling, right,
Mm-hmm.
around the sport, yeah, that would be devastating to me for this sport
Sure.
because, as you said, he is that dude that has been pushed. He is a two-way player. He pitches and he hits at an extremely high level. If this guy, who's exciting for me, like
Yeah.
I love watching this guy. Um, if that happens, that is damaging for the sport. And I really don't say that word a lot too, but just because of where baseball is, and I think that, yeah, I think you talked about the video I did the other day. I was talking about baseball trying to get younger viewers to the game. And I like some of the changes baseball's made to speed up the game. I think that's going to help. But I think even more important is just the promotion of young stars that are exciting, like really exciting. Because I think the younger generation looks at baseball as a little boring. And I
Yeah.
understand where they're coming from on that. But I think there's ways you got to make this a little more exciting. Otani's exciting, man. Mookie Betts is exciting. Aaron Judge is exciting. We're going to talk about some other players who are really exciting.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well then, is baseball cool? Or can it be cool again? And what would it take? You said some rule changes helped, but can it be cool again?
I think it can be cool again. I think you need more. I think they have to highlight more. You got to meet people where they are. We have to like I say this as a 40 soon to be 41-year-old man. I understand that it's not going to be cool in the same way that it was in the 90s. But one of the things I thought baseball did do very well at that time was leaning to a guy. I'm a big Ken Griffey fan. Ken Griffey was cool. His swing was cool. They played into the swing. His swag, his rocking the baseball hat backwards, all that stuff, right? You need a little bit more personality shown. And you do these things nowadays through social media and making things accessible through social media. And that's just where we are. It's a different time. And so I think if they lean into those things a little bit more, I think it can be cool. I have another thing how I think baseball could be cool.
Okay, hit
And
me.
I think they need to reduce the season. I think we need to reduce the season from
Ooh, hot
162 games.
take. What,
Yeah, I
how
do.
many games?
I felt this. I'd be fine with like 130, 130.
Okay, wow.
I think taking a month off the season, I think it's a little too long. You and I were talking about this before we came on, and because of the length, you're able to just hop in when you want to, which I think is good and bad. But I don't feel this way just about baseball. I want to be clear. I'm a big NBA guy, and I think the NBA should reduce their season as well too.
But they
there's a
split
lot.
in half basically. They gave the early in-season tournament in the first half, and they got the playoff run in the back half, I guess.
I'd like to see them get down to about 60 games. The other thing is health. I think health and interest, right? And I think you're going to have more high quality games when you reduce the amount of games. And I also think about it with pitchers. We're seeing more pitchers get hurt. And I think we have too much stress on pitchers. And I think pitchers who can be really great stars and exciting, I want to see them fresher. I want to see them pitch more in bigger games. I want to see that. I think taking a month off the season would be better. There are things baseball's done that I like. Like I love the new playoff format. I love it.
Really?
I'm a big fan of the new playoff format.
Okay.
But can it be cool again? Yeah. Will it pass the NFL? Probably not, because I think this country likes violence in their sport a little bit too much. Will it pass the NBA? Might be past it right now. I don't know. I think it can be cool again. And you know what I also will say too? I think it'll be cool again when we start to see a little even more diversity in it. And I mean that for Black players. I mean that for as more Asian players come into the game. Obviously, we've seen a huge rise in the amount of Latino players in the game. I think that'll help make it cool. I think getting away with some of the unwritten rules that I can't stand in baseball.
What's your least favorite?
What'd you say?
What's your least favorite unwritten rule in baseball?
Oh, that if somebody hits a home run off of you and smashes it 450 feet and they admire it or they bat flip or whatever, you think you got to bean them the next time. I think that's absolutely stupid. Like I think it's stupid. Let me tell you something, Flobo. If I could smash a ball that somebody threw at me 98 miles an hour and I could hit it 400 plus feet, I'd be admiring it too. I'd be staring at it. I'd be dancing. Like, pitch better. Don't be mad. Just pitch better next time.
Yeah.
I can't stand that as an unwritten rule. I'm fine with people. You want to pitch in high and tight. You want to control the plate. I'm all good with that. Sure. Hitting people, throwing a ball at them to beat them, I think it's corny. I think it's lame. Because my argument's always been like, if you're going to do that, can you then be mad if the batter takes his bat, his weapon of choice, if you want to say that, and comes back out at you? You can't be. You just threw a projectile at him. That's very dangerous. Yeah. What if the person came at you with a bat? We'd say that person's wrong, right? So why don't we do the same thing on the other side? Also, it's very cultural, right? And I think that's the point I'm really getting at with this is we'll see our Latino brothers play with, as the people will say, a little bit more flair or have a little bit more celebratory nature to the game, which I think is fun. We've seen our Korean brothers do this with the bat flips. I think it's fun. But then it seems like the majority in this country doesn't seem to like that. And that I'm always like, what's going on with that? Who's enforcing these unwritten rules? And so, yeah, I'm not a big fan of the beating. And I think that's got to go. And I love bat flips. More bat flips, please. Please.
More bat flip. Hey, you flip that bat. No, I hear you. I feel like for me, I hate the whole green light thing. If it's a 3-0 count and you hit me at 80 mile per hour fastball to get on the board, I'm smashing that every time. Sorry, coach. You know what I mean? But
I'm kind of with you on that. Why why do you have to take all the way? Right?
No idea.
And you know, like your point is good. Like, you know what's coming.
Right.
Right?
Right. Gamesmanship, sportsmanship, bah humbug. Okay, so we talked about players on the next wave. I mean, we are seeing a lot more of the social media game individually by players who are trying to get drafted or those who are in the system. I feel like with the futures game and spring breakout, Major League Baseball is trying to shorten the time that we forget about people who are drafted because it takes you 5 years on average to get to the show. Who are you looking at? Who do you think is some players you would watch? Who are some of your favorites right now? What's it look like for you?
So that I love to watch. Are we talking young players or established players? Like, does it matter? Does it not matter?
Who is on the hot Dexter Henry 100 as far as like the people you're watching all different levels of the game?
Okay. So what? Yeah, I love watching Mookie Betts, man. I love watching him play. He's just so fun. He's so versatile with speed, everything that he can do. I just absolutely love watching him play. Like, another kid I like watching play that it pays me to say it as a Mets fan, but I think he's good. I know he had a little bit of a down year hitting last year, but Michael Harris with the Braves, I think he's going to be a really good center fielder. I mean, we saw him come up and hit early his first year. The defense is good. I just love how he plays right now. It's good. A guy I'll say I loved watching play, he had struggled last year. And now with the Marlins, Tim Anderson, I was a big Tim Anderson fan. TA7. I'm hoping he bounces back because I like TA. I like his energy. I like his feistiness. I just like a lot of how he plays.
Can I jump in here for a second? Because there's a big debate here at the Black Baseball Mix Discord. Like, I feel like when it comes to black players, not to make it a racial thing, but I have to, that Tim Anderson got a short end of a stick, had a down year. Everyone admits that, but took forever to be signed and got signed for $5 million, which is the same amount of money that Andrew McCutchen's making, who was like 8 years his senior. To me, I felt like it was kind of, you made one bad season, you had one bad joke and one bad fight, and no one wanted to touch you. While there are people out there who's done worse, i.e. Trevor Bauer, who has like people campaigning for them to be re-signed. What was your thoughts about the TA signing and the deal at that? If you have any thoughts on that?
Oh, no, I have thoughts on it. And my thoughts are really along the same as of yours. So you know what's funny about it, Flobo?
Yeah.
The day he signed with the Marlins, I remember I was in studio and it popped up and I was like, oh, shoot, I forgot he was a free agent.
Yeah.
Like, I totally didn't realize. And that the first thing that struck me when I saw that, I was like, 5? Right? Like it made me just think about, I'm like, oh, so if the Marlins got him for 5, there was a whole bunch of people out there that could have had him. And then, it's funny how your mind works with this stuff. Then you start thinking, you're like, okay, so why was the price so low? And I took all the stuff. Don't get me about the Josh Donaldson stuff. And Josh Donaldson was wrong. He knew what he was doing. his bad joke and he had the down year. I get all that. But 5, because you're right, you make a great point in bringing up Trevor Bauer, who obviously the stuff that he's been accused of is absolutely disgusting, but people are still willing to pay him top dollar. Now, people can make the argument, they're going to say this, Flobo, oh, well, the last time Trevor Bauer pitched, he was still pitching really well and blah, blah, blah. And Tim Anderson's made an all-star team. It's not like, do we think this man just fell off? Like, he just can't hit anymore?
Right.
Do we really believe that is what I'm saying? That he should have been a $5 million player. And what that tells you for Tim Anderson is, because when the question I thought about before was, okay, well, he could have been had by a lot of other teams. Maybe for whatever some reason teams didn't want to have him. And you always wonder with black players like him who've been outspoken, and I'll say I call him feisty in how he plays on the field, that sadly those players, when they're black, still get stereotyped as that's a negative. It will be a negative for the clubhouse, right?
Sure.
If the player is generally white, they'll be like, oh, he'll fire up the clubhouse or he'll be a leader. You'll see those kind of things. So I wonder how much of a stink, shall I say, was around Tim Anderson because of how he signed late. And he had to take, when you're signing a deal that close to spring training, you wanted to get it because you want to make sure you have a chance that you can be solidified. You can get in the camp. You're going to make a team. And I'm sure his agent was telling him you got a chance to then get, it's a 1-year deal, but then you can get a long-term deal, make some more money. Right. I get all that. To me, there's no way he should have been signed that late. I think he's too good of a player. I think he will bounce back. I think he will prove people wrong. I think Miami's a good situation for him. I'm just a little disappointed for him on the money because I think he should definitely get more money than what he got. Do I think race is a factor? Absolutely. It's America. That's my answer.
Yeah, it's like we want to be as post-racial as we want, but I mean, there's some things that are just going to be baked in there because you'll notice when every time Tim Anderson has a picture on, not even him, there'll be a graphic from like a sports site. There's a bunch of people that'll be like, "Oh, Jackie Robinson," and like it was a clumsy quote, but that really wasn't the intent. The reason why I bring up Trevor Bauer, besides what he's accused of and what he's alleged accused of, because I've been following the case, I'm not going to speculate as to what's true and what's not, is and this is totally factual, that he joined traveling baseball teams to play against Major League Baseball teams. If that were somebody else, I would wonder, would that be considered unhinged to show up and be like, I'm going to play the Mets, hoping the Mets sign me, and what precedent that would be. But yet there's people campaigning. So I do think there's a bit of a disconnect. I do think Tim Anderson got a really raw deal. As we record this, Tommy Pham is still unsigned as you roll into the 2024 season. I think it's a little bit different. But I totally put you aside of players you like to watch. I'm sorry about that. Who else is on your screen? Justin for TA7.
No. I'm actually really, really, really happy you brought that up. Like I'm really happy. Also on my list, I'll keep it in the NL East. CJ Abrams, young shortstop there. I'm really intrigued to see how he develops. With the Nats this season, and then does he take the next step in terms of his hitting? Also with his defense. I also love watching JP Crawford with the Mariners playing the short. I always love shortstops, so I'm always a little bit biased to that position, shortstops and center fielders. So I like JP Crawford right now. You know what? I feel like, Flobo, I'm a little bit behind in my watching and following. I've really been looking for who the good black pitchers coming up. I know there's one who's in the Rays system. I'm forgetting his name right now. It's blanking on me. There's in the Rays system coming up that was at the AAA level and should pitch this year. So there's been a while since there's been a black pitcher I've really been excited about. We probably go back to Dontrell Willis.
Whoa,
for the last time. I was, I really liked a black pitcher. I really was excited about that. Thought could do well in the league. So yeah, those are some of my guys. I mean, obviously, Aaron Judge is mashing home runs. So yeah, we got to give him, love and props too. But I think there's some really exciting players. There's some really exciting Afro-Latino players in there too. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Ronald Acuna. So there's some really exciting players that I love to watch right now in baseball.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was a big Devin Williams fan. As I record this, he's still pretty much going to be injured. He's kind of like questionable for the year. But his entry to WBC, which I think is something we should really lead into. I know a lot of people had issues about the timing of that tournament in the beginning of the season. But I do think WBC is actually a good way to grow the game that seems a bit more organic and put other players on a platform.
I
I
agree.
like to see the airbender himself when it comes to that sort of thing. But we had talked about before we went live about the ballparks that you visited and what's on your docket. What's that
Yeah.
look like in 2024? You gonna see some brand new parks this year?
Yeah, there's a couple I'm going to try to catch. I'm hoping with some trips. Busch Stadium in St. Louis is one of them. Hoping to visit some friends out there in May and go see them with the Mets. I've wanted to get out your way to Los Angeles, San Diego area. I want to see Petco. That's on my list. I'm also hoping to visit another friend in Minneapolis again this summer and check out that stadium. I was outside of it this past fall, but it didn't get to see it. So there's a couple. I mean, I've been fortunate. The ones I've visited, obviously the ones in New York, City and Yankee Stadium, and I've also been to the ones that were there before, the old Yankee Stadium and Shea Stadium. I've been to Fenway, fortunate to do that and get up to the Green Monster. That was dope. I've been to Camden. I've been to PNC in Pittsburgh, where I went to college. I've been to the Vet when it was there, and then a couple years ago, you will love this, Flobo.
Hit me.
I went to Citizens Bank Ballpark. And you know what game I was there for? Not last year, the year before. On May 6th, I was there for that wonderful comeback.
Yes,
the Mets were down. One of the best days. One of the best days of my life as a Mets fan on the road. That was absolutely fantastic.
That was a crazy game. And it's funny, I was in Arizona for the comeback game for the Diamondbacks, where the Phillies were up 7-0. They lost 13-7.
Yeah, that was good. I've been to Nationals Park, as well too. I think that's all that I've been to. I'm thinking if I've forgotten if there's I've been in Arizona. I've been to Chase in Arizona as well too. Yeah. So I've been there as well. Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's all the ballparks that I've actually been to. So a lot East Coast heavy. I got a lot more. Oh, and I forgot. T-Mobile in Seattle. We talked about that before. T-Mobile in Seattle. I got to check that out 2 summers ago, and that's a lovely ballpark. That was great. Took my daughter with me, and she had a good time walking around it. So yeah, that was fantastic. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else I've left out. I think those are all the ones, if I'm not mistaken. I think those are all the ones. So yeah.
No matter where you go, the Phillies are going to Philly. Just have a lead and just blow it, which I love to see. which I love to see.
Oh, let me tell you something. I thought now the 3 people I was with, are all Philadelphia Phillies fans. My 2 roommates from college, and one of his wife was there. They're all rooting for the Phillies, but tough times for them, good times for me. That's all I can say.
For me this year, we might do St. Louis. I haven't figured out the details, but this year I'm doing the Mid-Atlantic swing. So Baltimore, DC, Boston, and Philadelphia. I'm doing and I'm gonna have a ballpark tour scheduled for Truist. Kind of a weird fact that Truist is the 3rd highest stadium in elevation behind Colorado and Arizona. It's kind of makes sense. Hit us ballpark, right?
It does.
So I'm gonna get all 30 up there and down. But let me ask you a professional question, because it seems like your face is everywhere, man. I'm talking about the New York Post, my dad's favorite newspaper, SNY. I mean, how do you balance the schedule? Is it just kind of like get in where you fit in? Do things take priority? What's that look like?
So I'm the weekend anchor for the New York Post SNY digital partnership. So I know I'm there every Saturday, Sunday. I do fill in some days occasionally during the week. And then I usually have my schedule early for WFAN and CBS Sports Radio. So I kind of know what days I'm filling in there. Usually I do a lot of night or overnight shifts. So that helps. I kind of know where those 2 things are set. So then I saw
your eyes say overnight shift and go, oh man, overnight.
Yeah, because overnight shifts can be. Listen, there's sometimes. So some people don't know this. Some people will follow me on social media when I do post about this. But you may see me a Saturday and I'm at SNY, from 8:30 till 4:30 is my shift, and then I do an overnight shift down the street at WFAN CBS Sports Radio, and I'm there from 7:30 till about 3:30 in the morning. So sometimes those days are really long and tiring. I've reduced the amount of times I try to do that a month. I used to at one point I was doing it about 3 or 4 times a month, and that was like a lot, starting to catch up to me. So I've been reducing that a little bit. So it's really that I have my schedule with that, and I try to fill in during the week now, especially while college sports is going on, fill in some play-by-play and color commentary for different stuff. Like I have a baseball game coming up with John Jay College this Wednesday. Trying to make sure my schedule. Got my schedule wrong.
Wow.
It's it's a lot of time management, writing it down, figuring out what you can do. But I think knowing that almost my weekends are always kind of take time with that, and I kind of fill in the other stuff. It's good. I'm usually a month ahead in knowing what I can and can't do and what I'm able to do. The tough thing is like trying to fit in other stuff, right? Like trying to actually go to a game, Flobo, or trying to go to these other ballparks. That stuff is kind of a little bit challenging. And then obviously, I'm a father, and I have a little one, and it's the activities with her, and my family, and taking them to school, and so that you balance everything. I think I've become better at time management as I've gotten older.
Right.
I think I've become better at realizing what I can and can't do. Like if something's too much, or I know it's draining too much for me, I'm okay to step back from that and just be like, okay, I'm gonna, self-care is important too. I work hard, but I try self-care is important as well, for sure.
I hear many in your position, being a husband and father, have that spidey sense where it's like, I can't do it, but that might be damaging to the fam. Like I heard that gets like more fine-tuned as it goes on with your career, which is I commend you, because I know there's sometimes I'm tired and I, you know what I mean? Like I could eat a couple crackers and go to bed. I can't do it if I had a kid. So respect.
Nah, you can't. You can't do that, man.
Yeah, you can. So let me ask the question: being in tune with New York sports, why is New York sports down bad? The only thing we have is a Liberty, and they got so close. Like, why can't we win a championship to any other sport in town? What's going on with New York right now?
So it's better than it was, I'd say, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Because the Knicks are better. The Rangers are good. The Knicks and Rangers are expected to make some deep playoff runs this spring. Expected is a key word here. Expected. Those teams are better. The football teams have not been good.
Nope.
Very disappointing. The baseball teams last year was as disappointing a baseball year in New York as I can remember in a long time. And the teams weren't terrible, but the Yankees were not the Yankees.
Teams weren't terrible.
The Mets were not good. Oh, terrible might be harsh. Here's what I'll say. The Mets were unwatchable for the last 2 months. We're Mets fans. Like, you got to be a diehard Mets fan and just wanted to see Ronnie Mauricio or any other prospects come up to watch. Listen, I'll be honest, I'm a Mets fan. It's tough for me to watch.
I watch for Gary Cohen, basically, but I hear you.
Yeah. And listen, I work for New York Post and SNY, and look, we had to still talk and make Mets content work. We got to figure out, when you're a journalist like me, I'm thinking about, okay, what are we going to talk to Mike Puma about today? You find things. You're looking for little things, but it's tough. It's tough, man. Like it's tough. And then the Yankees, they, it was like, the story's like, should Cashman come back? They didn't do anything at the trade deadline to improve their team. Are they still competitors? Are they still the evil empire? They're all those kind of stuff. So New York, I mean, you're right. The sports team that is closest to winning a championship is absolutely the Liberty. Like I love when I see people get asked that question and they don't mention the Liberty, and I'm always like, oh, y'all telling yourselves because you don't watch it. You're not even respecting this WNBA franchise in New York, which is clearly the best team.
True, but they're also an OG team that's never won a championship. I mean, it's kind of hard to give them a lot of that respect if you can't get it done. But I know what you're saying. There's some people that don't even watch WNBA at all. But I'm just saying, come on, Liberty.
They were so close last year. And I'm very intrigued. This is a very interesting. I'm very excited for this WNBA season. I'm a WNBA fan, and I like, I'm not sure they're better than the Aces still, though. Not sure about that.
Right.
Like if you put gun to my head and was like, if the Liberty Aces are going to play again in the finals, who's winning? I'm probably still picking the Aces. In 5, I thought the Liberty should have pushed this to 5. I think what was so disappointing last season is the Aces had all those injuries to Chelsea Gray and people at the end, and they still couldn't win that game 4, which I was at, and they lost that game 4. They blew a lead in the fourth quarter.
Sure.
That was disappointing. But yeah, the Liberty are the best hope. I would say the closest. Then I'd probably put the Rangers second and the Knicks third. The baseball teams, I know because this is a baseball show.
Sure.
The Mets are not close right now. Do I think they could be in a year? Yes. I think it could be very different if we're talking about this next year.
Sure.
Right now, I think they are fringe third wild card spot contender. That's where I would put them if some things break right. The Yankees are more interesting than the Mets in that they could and should probably win the division, but the Garrett Cole injury stuff is concerning. Does Carlos Rodon pitch well for them this year? What's like the rest of their pitching really like? They've had some injury. Would you say it's all right? Like,
Stroman is there. I mean,
and I forgot to mention Stroman. I like Stroman as a pitcher. I know for some Mets fans, they didn't like how he left and all this stuff. I still like Stroman. I thought that was a good signing by the Yankees. I think Stroman is going to pitch well this year.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a it would not shock me if Cole comes back healthy and Stroman's their second best pitcher. That would not shock me. It wouldn't shock me for September. It wouldn't shock me by July. I was like, Flobo, you hit me up and we text and we're like, man, Marcus Stroman is looking really good. That wouldn't shock me at all. The rest of the Yankees pitching is a little, I just don't know what I'm getting. It's a little suspect to me, right? And a lot of it really depends on Rodon. If Rodon is good, because they need a lefty to be good, then they're fine. I don't know about you though, Flobo. He kind of strikes me as a guy who's like, I don't know if you're one of these guys that just can't pitch in New York.
Right.
And the Yankees have had some signings like that before, the Carl Pravanos of the world, right?
Wow.
Taking it back, right? They just weren't able to pitch in New York. I'm wondering if he's that guy. He's been a little banged up, so I want to be fair to him, but I think it's a big year for him in that regard. It says a lot when I'm saying I trust Stroman and what he possibly could do more than him this year. I don't know if you feel me on that, but that's just how I feel about it.
The thing about Stroman is that no one ever questions his on-field work. Yeah, sometimes he gets knocked around a lot, and then when he does, it's pretty heavy. It just feels like every 2 seasons he feels like unfulfilled and wants to go somewhere else. I think that's the biggest question mark with Stroman. But no one's going to be like, he can't pitch in New York. He's from the area, but Rodon, in a year where everyone's getting 1-year deals, I feel Rodon is the biggest question mark in baseball, which is crazy, right? Because it's like it could be lights out. It could be the engine, or he could be the flat tire. And we don't really know what this is until we get back in May or June, what Rodon we're going to get. So I'm with you, man. I'm with you 100%.
Yeah. The Yankees, I think offensively they're going to be fine. It's the pitching. It's a little bit the same with the Mets too. I think the Mets offensively are going to be fine. Mm-hmm. It's the pitching, and the Mets pitching is different because they got a bunch of guys on a 1-year deal that have to prove themselves. Right. Now, I like what Stearns did in that. I think the way the Mets have managed this has been smart. This was not the year to go in on free agents outside of Yamamoto, and people can relax, even though Yamamoto got smacked in the first game. They can calm down. This was not the year for that. Next year's a better free agent class. The Mets said, look, let's be judicious with our money. Let's give some guys who may be motivated to pitch well this year, and we'll see how it goes. Now, it wouldn't shock me if Severino had a good year for the Mets. It wouldn't shock me. Now, do I trust a lot of these dudes to have a good year? No. But, right? Like, I don't trust it. I wouldn't bet on it, but it wouldn't shock me if a couple of them did. And if a couple of them do, if Quintana pitches well, if Severino pitches well, who the guys I probably could see, and Senga comes back, and I think Senga's really good, and that was a great signing. They can compete, and they could be anywhere from 80 to 85 wins. I don't think that's crazy for them, the way that team is.
I'm with you. I also understand that I get dragged on the Black Baseball makes the score of being a Mets Pollyanna and looking at the best of things. But the name of the game for the Mets is winning 6 more games than they did last year. I mean, or 7 more games. And they can do that because the issue we had, besides the dead money we are saddled with, and that's why we have a bunch of 1-year deals, is that we were always playing from behind. And that takes a huge psychological drain on a team where it's the top of the bottom of the first or top of the second, and you're down 4-0. And that's on Verlander, and he knew it. And that was on Scherzer, and he knew it. So these guys could be not nearly as splashy or sexy. I think if this was a GM game, like out of the park baseball, I give Stearns a lot of high marks. But if you guys could just eat innings and give them a 0-0 or a 1-0, that'll give us a chance. And with JD Martinez in the middle of the lineup now, I think he could win 7 more games than last season. Yeah.
I don't think, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't think that's crazy.
Hmm.
And I don't think that's us being super Mets Pollyanna, right? Like I don't think that's crazy. I think there's some part of the Mets fan base that's either like, I've heard some things about Mets winning the division. I think that's a bit much. And I've heard things about they'll be the worst team in the NL East. I think that's also a bit much. Like, I'm not in the sky's always falling. I think the Mets are going to be a fine competitive team. And I think what Stearns has shown to me, at least in the way he's approached this, is I am not going. I'm good at finding. I trust myself in finding value, and if things go bad, he'll be able to flip some of that for value. Because the Mets, there's another thing the Mets are trying to do, and they need to do, and I think it's important that they are doing it, is rebuild the farm system.
Oh,
Yep.
yes, that too.
Yep. And also, I know what you're saying. You probably saying like cut ties with some people.
The payroll. I mean, the payroll has come down, but the farm system is
I
way
think
more
you got to
important.
bring the payroll down to then reinvest in the areas they did. One of the things they did last year, which I thought was a mistake, and I'm just not revisionist history. People can check other places I said this. I was not crazy about the Verlander signing, Flobo, because
Okay.
I thought it made him too old at the top of rotation. I wasn't crazy about the signing at all whatsoever. I thought the Mets needed to. Now, I also wasn't mad at them for not re-signing DeGrom. I understood why they didn't do that. I just think Stearns is a value guy. I think Stearns cares about building the farm system. I think the other thing the Mets fans need to look at this year is there somebody, particularly a pitcher, is it Corbin, who I think is going to be starting in AAA this year? Is there somebody that can come up and give them a spark? They need another young player to come up and do it. The news around Mauricio sucked for them. Obviously him getting hurt last year.
Right.
But I think this year is going to answer some questions. Is Beatty the third baseman? Is there another player? Yeah, I see. Is there another young player? Is there another young player that can come up and spark this team, particularly a position player, or most notably a pitcher? We need a pitcher. We need some pitching.
Sure.
Look, the Mets are not in a worse spot. They're not a terrible team. They're an average team that's retooling, and that's not a bad spot to be in. That's all I'm saying.
I said sometimes you gotta look in the mirror and then get that gym membership or read a new book or just do something different. I think that's what the Mets are doing right now.
Self-improvement, man. Self-improvement.
And I'll be honest with you. Yeah, self-improvement. I'll be honest with you. If they win, let's say they're not going to win the World Series, but let's say the Mets win the World Series this year, 2024. Crazier things have happened. It will actually be more satisfying than 2022 when the expectation was there. Imagine when no one thinks you have a chance and you go all the way. It's way more satisfying as a fan. So I have that spark of hope. It won't go that far, but I have that spark of hope.
Nah, yeah. Those years are always the fun years. Even like 2015 to some degree, right? Like, I think most Mets fans thought they could make the playoffs. I never thought they'd have to run like that, but that run was so fun. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
I love the years like this. I will say this. It wouldn't shock me if this is a year where I think as a Mets fan, if the team is playing meaningful games in August, September, you should sign for that with a chance to get in a playoff spot. And I'm going to say this. I think they will be. I think they will be playing meaningful games in August, September. I think they will.
See, this is why you're the genius, man. Dexter Henry, thanks so much for being on the show. Black Baseball Mixtape in the booth, man. If anyone wants to connect with you, follow what you're doing, sign up for a newsletter if you got one, like, how they go about doing that?
Yo, new way people can connect with me. I'm going to find a new way to get people to subscribe. I'm trying to tweak some stuff. I have my own website out. It's dexterhenry.com. You can see all my work on there. I also will be posting works like when I join people's shows like Flobo. I will be posting that on there too. I'm also going to make a page for that from when I jump on other people's shows because people ask me to come on. I'm so glad when I get to go on great shows like this. You can follow me at DHenry TV. You can catch me on the New York Post or SNY YouTube channels. You'll see my work there as well too. So yeah, but the best way to follow me is follow me on social media or check out my website, see my work, find out more about me. Flobo, I want to thank you. I also want to just give you some flowers. I think what you're doing here with Black Baseball Mixtape is absolutely dope. We need more of this around baseball, particularly around Black content creators. So salute to you and all the other Black content creators that are doing this around the sport. There are a lot of Black people that love baseball, like myself and you, brothers with Caribbean ties that love baseball. And so, I said this earlier, but I'm so proud to see, I said this to you off air. I'm proud to see you doing it as a fellow Eastern Caribbean brother from Barbados and Grenada. I'm proud to see you in the space doing it. And anytime you want me back on to come and talk some baseball, it'll be more than my pleasure to come back on with you, brother. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, that's going to happen. And when the Mets win the World Series, I'm definitely calling you up first. I'm like, yo, we got to do the show.
We got a party. That's what we got to do. Something like that.
Yo, this has been In the Booth.